and this is Jason from Fix My Books, and this week we're doing something, again, a little different. It's tax comparison between living in Ontario, Canada, and Florida, USA, so mainly Toronto and Miami. And this week we're working out, based on last week's video, which was the tax bracket, so if you haven't checked that out, check that out. We're using those tax brackets to work out what the taxes paid on 100,000 US dollars or 140,000 Canadian dollars is. So let's get started. So again, part one, we looked at the tax brackets. This week, part two, we're looking at what are the taxes paid on 100,000 US dollars / 140,000 CAD. Part three, because we have healthcare costs in Canada where we're paying them via our taxes. What are these healthcare costs in the US, so we can balance that out. Part four, we're going to look at housing and the expenses generally, very, very generally. And then part five, we're going to check out what are the probabilities of earning a high income or 100,000 US dollars, 140,000 CAD in both countries, and compare the two. So let's compare living in Toronto and Miami. So the taxes on 100,000 US dollars and 140,000 CAD. And we're going to assume, this used to be a standard thing, married with one spouse, working, child under 5. Probably not as common anymore, but this is the comparison we're going to make. And then we're going to look at line 30300, which is the basic personal amount. And you can see here how we've broken this down. In Canada, we've included that you're living in the province of Ontario, and that there's one where you claim the amount for the spouse and one where you don't. We've also broken it down by married filing jointly, because the people are married, and married filing separately. Why? Because, you can't file single if you're married, obviously. So this is the breakdown, and you can see the amount of taxes. So let's just go through them. And what we've also done is broken it down into CAD, as well as the CAD US and then CAD equivalent there. So you can just really see a one-for-one comparison between the two. So in terms of federal taxes, you're looking at $21,000 of federal taxes in Canada, without claiming the basic personal amount of the spouse. This is actually a little higher, so it's about $2,300 higher. It's quite a bit of money, $23,500 in taxes. And then if we look at this in MFJ, so married filing jointly, it's under half, so 11,249 CAD. Which is 8,000 US dollars versus $100,000 of US income. And then if we look at married filing separately, it's actually quite similar to what's going on with federal taxes. It's you're paying quite similar rates to what you're going to be paying in Canada. Because Canada, we don't actually have married filing jointly. We don't have that benefit. You can claim the basic personal amount from the spouse, but that's really it. Then this is the big one where there's obviously going to be a massive difference, is the fact that you don't have, in Florida, state income taxes, obviously. But in Canada, you have provincial income tax. So we're paying in Ontario an extra $12,609 if you're claiming the basic personal amount of the spouse not working, versus $13,500 if you're not, versus zero. So it's an enormous difference. But here is where you will have to pay more, and it doesn't really matter what state you're in, because this is a federal tax. And it's the FICA taxes in the US. So you can see that they're effectively double what we're going to have to pay in Canada. So the CPP, CPP2, and EI taxes combined net out to $5,105. And on without the cents, obviously. Whereas in the US, they're over double, so they're $10,710 Canadian equivalent, so $7,650 US. And you can see the massive difference before benefits of the actual tax, the amounts you're taking home. So compared, let's just compare the two. So these are roughly the same, $2,500, about $3,000 difference here. So 3% difference. But this is, you're getting an extra $17,000 living in Florida versus living in Ontario. And it's also another $9,000 if you're doing a married filing separately. Canadian equivalent dollars, sorry. So, you're actually netting out quite well living in Florida, but we need to take into account what these benefits actually are, because you've got one spouse working, the other spouse isn't. You've also got a child under 5. So in Canada, we do get the Canada carbon rebate, so $980, and we're assuming it's a non-rural area. That rebate, it kind of helps, but I swear my electricity bill that I pay is much higher with the taxes than it used to be. And we've also got here the Canada Child Benefit, CCB, and in the US we're claiming the child tax credit, so it's a $2,000 tax credit. And why we're not claiming any other credits is because we wouldn't really be able to, because once the other spouse is not actually looking for work, they are staying home with the child. So you can see the Canada Child Benefit and the Canadian dollar equivalent of the child tax credit is actually very similar. So it's $2,891 for a child under 5 in Canada, and I think the child I put is 3. And for the US, it's 2,800 Canadian dollars or $2,000. But you are getting that Canada carbon rebate back, so you're getting an extra $1,000 back in terms of benefits versus the two. So while you're getting $2,800 back Canadian equivalent in Florida, MFJ and MFS, you're getting $3,800, just over $3,800 back in Ontario. And that's really the rebate. So what do you take home? Well, if we look at it here, it's an extra $15,000 married filing jointly in Florida versus Canada, where we're maxing out at nearly $105,000. And even married filing separately, where you get those lower tax thresholds and you're getting taxed on the lower tax thresholds because you've got two spouses filing separate, you're still, what is that, nearly $8,000 better off in Florida. So you can see that the taxes are, well, obviously they're substantially different. And you're really seeing that it is to do with the fact that you don't have to pay these sales taxes. State taxes, state income taxes. And, you're getting hit quite hard when it comes to having to pay FICA taxes, as opposed to Canada, where, our sort of payroll equivalent taxes are quite low. They're nowhere near as high. And the benefits are actually quite similar. So you do get this little kick with the Canada carbon rebate, but then again, I'm not sure at the moment because we need to run the rest of the analysis, but you're probably paying a lot more in taxes over the course of the year through your monthly bills than this amount here that you're getting back. I'm quite sure that you are, because there have been several reports on this, and just personally from looking at my bills, you are paying more. But you can see the difference. It is substantial. It's like a $15,000 jump in income to you if you are married filing jointly living in Florida versus Ontario. And nearly a, what is this, $19,000 jump if you're not taking the basic, the spouse amount. Yeah, so it's a big difference. So that's what the taxes are that you're going to have to pay on $100,000 of income / $140,000 of CAD. But we really need to work out what it is in terms of the cost of healthcare, because when we look back at this, our provincial taxes take into account the cost of healthcare. What are the costs going to be for the US? Because they don't have state taxes here, obviously state income taxes, but their cost of healthcare is something that they have to pay in their expenses. So how do we balance that out? And that's something we'll cover in the next video. So I think this one is going to surprise quite a bit of people in Canada. I know it surprised me the first time I actually researched this a few years ago. It's a weird difference, to say the least. Like you wouldn't expect it at all. It's a video you probably really want to watch if you're Canadian. What are your healthcare costs in the US versus what are your healthcare costs in Canada? Because a lot of what we're told here in Canada is very media narrative, politically driven. Whereas I'm literally just looking up the numbers on this and then transplanting them in terms of, what we've got in our Ontario budget and taxes that are being paid, income taxes being paid, etc. And another thing that I also factor in this next video, cost of healthcare, is wait times and really the quality of care that you get. And this is coming from someone that I'll explain a lot more in the next video, that has lived in multiple countries, experienced multiple different healthcare systems, is a citizen of several countries, and experiences different healthcare systems. And, I'll get into it more in the next video, but this is something you'd want to watch. And then after that, we take into account the cost of housing and expensive. And this one was very surprising. You're actually not going to believe this one. I didn't believe it either. And then part 5, this is where we close it all up. And this will be drastically like a crazy surprise to a lot of people. Like, what is your ability to actually earn this amount of money? All right. So that's it. I'm Jason from Fix My Books. If you like the video, please feel free to comment, subscribe, like it, whatever. And if you have any ideas for another comparison you want me to do, just feel free to let me know, and I'll be happy to do it. Thanks.